Hey everyone, and welcome back to Get Your Geek On's Marvel Cinematic Universe Retrospective. I'm Robert, that's Aaron, and we're here to talk through the MCU. We got 23 movies across 11 years. We're going movie by movie.
That's right, and expect spoilers as we get into each movie, but we will start off each one letting you know whether we feel it's essential to the overall movie arc of the MCU.
Right.
Think of it as your guide in getting to the MCU.
Right, I mean, with any saga, there's always a few filler episodes. I mean, 23 movies is almost like a season of network TV. It's a lot of episodes, right?
I never thought of that. Yeah.
There's a few of those that are probably filler episodes, so maybe not essential. We'll let you know. But if you're like me, you might say, they're all essential. You can't miss any. All right. Today, what are we talking about, Aaron?
We are talking about the second Avengers movie, Age of Ultron. This one's come out, 2014?
2015. So close.
I was close.
2015's Avengers Age of Ultron. Yep. Return director Joss Whedon, as well as our main cast of Avengers, right? Made $191 million opening weekend, $1.4 billion over its run. Slightly behind the original Avengers, but pretty close. And in addition to our main Avengers, this movie adds James Spader as Ultron. We've got Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch, Aaron Taylor-Johnson as Quicksilver, and now we get Paul Bettany moving from a voice as Jarvis to now being on screen as the Vision. Yeah. Is this movie essential? That's where we're starting, right? Is this movie an essential movie?
Yes. I mean, without a doubt, this one is 100% essential.
Yeah.
We, like we said, there's spoilers here, so you finally get talked a lot more about the Infinity Stones.
And really, part of why this movie is so essential is, yes, there's a couple of those scenes that talk about the Infinity Stones, but it really sets the stage for the journey that all of our team members go on from this point forward. You got Iron Man and Captain America kind of in conflict with one another. That obviously leads to Civil War, the breakup of the Avengers, those types of things. You got Vision and Scarlet Witch kind of meeting and starting to become romantically linked. You got Bruce Banner struggling with the internal struggle of who he is, who is Hulk, all of that gets played out later. You got Thor's journey to figure out what are Infinity Stones and where are they and what's going on. That the next time we see him in Ragnarok, that's what he's been doing, right? He's been looking for Infinity Stones. You got Hawkeye, I want the simple life, I'm gonna retire.
Yeah.
You know, that plays in later on as well. So whatever all of those journeys, this movie really sets them on that path. Really, again, ripples through the universe, the Sokovia Accords, which ends up, tearing apart the team, basically, as we move forward. So, is it essential? Definitely it is. All right, so I remember the trailers for this movie. Everybody was crazy for this movie. Joss Whedon obviously returning. James Spader coming in as the villain. Yeah. And the trailers with his voice and everything were super menacing. The Vision, Hulkbuster. Everybody was just like, this is all coming. Oh my gosh, it's the Avengers again. Like, the hype for this movie was so high.
It really, really was. And I remember seeing those trailers, and again, everybody knows I'm a comic book fan. The moment I saw that Hulkbuster armor, I was like, I want that. I want that. I was going to live in here, guys. Yeah. I was going to live inside the Hulkbuster armor. Leave me alone.
For sure.
But I loved, and rewatching the movie, I love the line that Ultron says almost every scene he's in, there's no strings on me.
Yeah.
And I love how that plays out.
It's that Pinocchio reference, that I got no string, or I had strings, but now I'm free. Got no strings on me. And I remember for this movie, I was hyped, right?
Yes.
Coming off of the original Avengers, coming off of the last two movies being Winter Soldier and Guardians, coming off of that announcement of Phase 3. I mean, I was like, I'm on board. I was like researching before the movie ever came out. I'm like, what are the end? Are there end credit scenes? What are they? How many are there? And I remember
that for myself too.
Well, and I remember there was a big where Joss Whedon was like, guys, there's only one. It happens early. There's nothing at the end of this movie. Did I sit until the very end of the credits? You
I don't
bet
think
I
you
did.
Joss Whedon. That's
I
why.
stayed, and there was nothing more. He was right. There's only
They
the
can
one.
tell the truth, Joss Whedon, but we didn't believe you.
But about half the theater was like, "We're staying." And I remember even the person I was with, she was like, "So is there another credit scene?" And I was like, "Well, they said there isn't, but I'm gonna stay."
I can't remember if I took anybody to that one, but I do remember spoiling it for myself before it came out. So I was excited to know that Thanos was going to play a little bit of part in the movie somehow.
Right, you spoiled it in the first one, didn't you? Didn't you know? Why do you keep spoiling these end credit scenes for yourself?
Because I told you the first one, I wore a Thanos t-shirt to the first Avengers film, and there was a girl that walked out and said, "You already knew it." I was like, "Yep," before it even came out. I never got her number, and I probably should have.
Stop spoiling it, man.
I should, but you know what? No, it was fun. I enjoy it, but I do have a question for you later on that. Too.
Sure.
So.
Well, and I want to know if you remember when you came out of this movie, how you felt. It was, your experience the first time you watched it. What do you remember?
I remember actually being a little surprised because, again, we're in spoiler territory at this point. Quicksilver dying was actually a throw off to me. I did not expect ever to see an Avenger die.
Well,
even though they said it leading up to it, someone was going to die.
And that whole movie set up that Hawkeye was going to die.
That's who I thought.
All the way up until the moment when he didn't die.
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, he's dead now. Oh wait, no, wait, what? And that's what surprised me. I mean, I remember going into this movie, people said, somebody's going to die, somebody's going to die.
Yeah.
And me and a buddy were trying to figure out, okay, who's it going to be? Okay, well, you can't kill Iron Man, you can't kill Cap, you can't kill this and that. And we kind of got down to it's either going to be Wanda, Quicksilver, Hawkeye, and I think we even threw Black Widow in there because we were just like, well, she's just a human.
Well, and if you look at it, I mean, the other characters, Iron Man being a huge one.
Yeah, he can't die.
Then you had Thor and Captain America had already had movies that had been announced, including Civil War, which obviously Iron Man was going to be in.
Yeah.
So those three, we knew they're not going to die.
Yeah.
And then how do you kill Hulk? So
you don't kill Hulk.
So it was like, I understand how you arrived at those three.
But it was still
your options. So I remember the first time I saw this movie, I loved it.
Same.
I think I wasn't quite as high on this one as I was on the first Avengers. I think that experience still is going to be the highest for me just because it was something I never thought I would see, never expected to see. But I remember this movie has a lot of really high points. I didn't really have anything I didn't like in it. There's some weaker points to it, and I know we're going to talk about that. But I remember I really, really, really enjoyed this movie coming out of the theater.
And I agree with you. There was a lot of shock for me with deaths and all that. And I was happy, and he'll come out again later, but we had a kind of an obscure villain in Claw coming out in this one.
Yes.
And yet, he has a small part.
It's a cool scene, though.
It is. And it's a powerful scene still, because it shows off the character development to me a lot with Wanda, Quicksilver, and even Ultron himself. So he was an essential character for the, 5 minutes he's on screen time? I was like, oh, you actually utilized him really well. And something I said we talked about on our other show off camera. I like Joss Whedon. I think he's a great director, and he's perfect for these team kind of movies where you, like you said, you get those little quirks in there from everybody.
Yeah.
But in this movie, and maybe compared to later ones, everybody got ample screen time. I think, everyone pretty much I think had just enough time, maybe like 10, 15 minutes between each person.
Yeah.
But they were all on there. They all got the spotlight. They shined in their scenes. Even when there was a bigger actor in it, the one that we were focused on still got that attention they deserved.
And there's, cool character arcs for pretty much every character in the movie. In terms of, kind of where they are at the beginning and where they are at the end.
Yeah.
Kind of the journey that they go through. And obviously, a lot of that is played out through Scarlet Witch and what she does to the team. So, with all that being said, let's get into the plot of the movie now. This is a long one.
So sit back.
Buckle up, guys. Buckle up for
I'll get you some water when you're done.
No, I'll be all right. All right. So the movie starts off, the Avengers are after Loki's scepter. So from the first movie, they need the scepter. It was supposed to be in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s custody, but if you remember the results of the Winter Soldier, S.H.I.E.L.D. was actually partially Hydra. So Hydra's had the scepter this whole time. It's been used in experiments to enhance the Maximoff twins, Wanda and Pietro.
Not related to the other Maximoff, I think.
Correct. Basically, two orphans of war, right? Yeah. That's what they are. So the Avengers get the scepter. Iron Man's grabbing it, and Wanda comes in with like her mind powers and basically reveals his deepest, darkest fear and makes him believe that it's inevitable that this fear is gonna come, and she wants him to act out of fear, right? Everything that he does, he will act out of fear, and she thinks that's gonna destroy him. It'll destroy the Avengers, right? And she's on board for that. And so they get the scepter back to Avengers headquarters. Tony convinces Bruce to help use the Scepter's gem, and we later learn that that's the Mind Stone, to create Ultron, right? It's an artificial intelligence that Tony has designed to protect the world from galactic threats. We need this to protect the world. A suit of armor around the world, right? That's his line, right? So Ultron comes to life.
Yes.
But instead of seeking to protect humanity, he does what every artificial intelligence does in all of these movies. He determines that humanity is the disease.
He watched every single war movie out there.
Humanities must evolve. That's the word he uses. And basically, by evolving, what he's saying is, I'm going to drop an extinction level event on you, kill everyone, and then
start over.
The life that moves forward from that point will be the highest level, which basically he means himself. He destroys Jarvis in the process, right? So, and then to ensure that the Avengers don't interfere with his plans, he basically uses Wanda's mind powers to exploit their fears, turns Hulk into a rampaging monster, and the Hulk rampages a city in South Africa and is only stopped after that lengthy battle with Iron Man in the Hulkbuster armor, which is pretty awesome. So now the Avengers, their minds are messed with. They have to go on a retreat, and they need to go to a safe house, which turns out to be Hawkeye's family home. He's got a wife and 2 kids and another one on the way. And there's that great moment where it's an agent. Those are smaller agents. Yeah, it's a good moment. And Nick Fury ends up showing up there, and he kind of rallies the team a little bit. You have Thor goes off to find answers. My dream, revealed like death and Infinity Stones. I got to figure out what's going on. So he leaves the team. Mm-hmm. And then you got Hawkeye, Black Widow, Captain America. They're going to go off to pursue Ultron because he's gone off to a scientist to get a vibranium body made that he's going to then inhabit. That's going to be his next evolution, which again is Ultron from the comics. He's always looking to evolve. And he's going to use the Mind Stone to basically power himself. Mm-hmm. And in creating this body, now Wanda is able to get a glimpse inside of Ultron's mind for the first time, really. Yeah. And she discovers that his true intentions are global destruction. And so now she and her brother turn on Ultron, and they decide to team up to help the Avengers, Captain America, Black Widow, and Hawkeye that are there, steal the body and the Mind Stone, and they do that, but Black Widow's captured in the process. Meanwhile, Tony has gone off to Sweden because there's something that is protecting the nuclear launch codes that Ultron can't get to him. He discovers that Jarvis actually survived the attack that Ultron had made, and so everybody ends back up at headquarters. Tony again convinces Bruce that let's now upload Jarvis into this body, and
it'll work. I swear.
And you can see his desperation, right? Yeah. And I think it plays really well. But of course, Captain America's like, "What are you doing? Didn't we just go through this?" You've got the Maximoff twins that are like, Tony Stark is the worst human being ever. Oh God. And so there's a big argument that breaks out, and eventually Thor shows back up out of nowhere, blasts the body with a lightning from his hammer, and brings it to life, and it's now the Vision, right? And so, and Thor says he's done that because he's seen a vision of destruction with the Mind Stone at its center, and that they're going to need this Vision to help them out. So Vision kind of gains the team's trust by picking up Thor's hammer, which is kind of a funny moment, right? And they go all off to Sokovia, which is where they discover that Black Widow is being held, and they're going to rescue her, fight Ultron. Ultron's plan is basically to create a meteor out of Sokovia, so he lifts it into the sky using like rockets and vibranium and stuff, and then it's going to crash down the world and blow up the world, right? Yeah. So everybody's fighting. They're trying to prevent him from doing that. They're guarding this, basically the key that will set the whole thing off. And it looks like they're going to win, right? They've got all the civilians off. S.H.I.E.L.D. has been helping, has come back.
They're back.
They've got all the civilians off. It looks like they're about to win. You know, there's only a couple of Ultron bots left, and Scarlet Witch is guarding it, and everything looks like it's going to be okay. And then Quicksilver has to sacrifice himself to save Hawkeye and a little kid because, you know, that's her twin. Scarlet Witch kind of senses it, and in her grief and her rage and her pain, she gets distracted, goes and, you know, kills the one main Ultron bot, but of course he controls all of them and he can put his consciousness in all of them. So even though she kills that one of the other Ultron bots turns the key, and now the city starts plummeting towards the Earth. Now we got to figure out how to destroy it. We've got all the civilians off, and we figure out that Tony and Thor can do something with power, and we don't worry about it.
And great responsibility.
Breaks up into little pieces, and everybody survives, right?
Yay!
So,
Except Quicksilver.
yes, except for Quicksilver. So, you know, basically, as the movie ends, you've got Thor going off in search of answers related to the Infinity Stones. You've got Hawkeye and Iron Man are retiring. Hulk is flying off to places unknown. And you've got Black Widow and Captain America. They get to work training a new team of Avengers, which, of course, includes Vision, Scarlet Witch, War Machine, and the Falcon. And then we see Thanos arriving in a mid-credit teaser to announce that he's going to do it himself. Okay. That's a lot of plot in this movie. I don't need any water, but that's a lot of plot in this movie. There's a lot going on. It's packed, jam-packed.
Okay.
But it's breakneck. I will say there are things that you can tell this is a bridge to the next phase. As well as, you know, its own movie. And sometimes that balance is a little bit off towards building what you want in the future versus what's here. But the action is really great. Everything with the characters is really great. Even the stuff with Bruce and Natasha and their romance, it works really well in this movie.
It does.
They don't build on it at all, and it doesn't make sense in the total arc because they really only reference it very minorly moving forward. But I think it works really well in this movie, even though that's not necessarily the romance you would think to go to. Yeah. I think they set it up well. I think their moments that they have together are pretty good. Yeah. So overall, I really like this movie. Give me your overall thoughts on the movie.
Overall, I'm a Joss Whedon fan. I've said that several times already. Firefly, Serenity, Buffy even a little bit. So was going in here happy to see this movie.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is one of the few ones I've only watched maybe 3 times now, 4 times. And I love it still. Yeah. You know, I was surprised how much I still enjoyed the film.
Okay.
Ultron, the way the character's presented, those lines, having
menacing.
That. He is, and it still gives me chills sometimes when he would talk. I'm like, oh, yeah, you still send those chills down my spine. And for a movie to do that, even after, you know, the second watch, because usually after the first one, you're like, okay, I know what to expect.
Right.
But when you watch it only a handful of times, it's like, wow, you're still hitting me with those lines. Mm-hmm. Visually, it's beautiful. There are some scenes where watching it again, maybe because I was watching it on my phone, watching some on my computer back and forth, I could see some of the like CGI was a little off for me in certain scenes, maybe because the lighting was bad or something. So that threw me off a little bit because it kind of would take me out of that moment from that minute. But when I would get back into it, I loved it. So overall, I was really pleased with the character development, the graphics, the storyline, and of course, you have Joss Whedon's humor. Like I think you said it off camera, the one-liners he does essentially. Yeah,
that was definitely one of the things I want to talk about. There's a lot of running gags in this movie. And I think pretty much they all work. Like the language comment, you know, where Captain America is, you know, language after Tony Stark says shit or asshole or something.
He hits the barrier and goes shit. Yeah. Language.
Yeah. And so that becomes a running gag that, you know, is Tony Stark's making fun of him for his old-fashioned language. And and I think that those running gags really work in this movie. I think, again, the humor in this movie, for the most part, really works. There's a couple parts that fall a little bit flat.
Yeah.
But, you know, the humor is definitely good. The character arcs that we've kind of already talked about, the one that most stands out to me is the dynamic between Captain America and Tony Stark continues to build. They were already kind of at odds in the first Avengers. You know, that whole big man in a suit of armor kind of stuff. But in this one, you really get Tony's just. He's just going off. He's doing his own thing. He's saying, isn't that the point to end the Avengers? And you really see Captain America saying, that's not what it's all about. And and you get Tony saying, the world is we're not going to be able to stop it. We're not going to win. And Captain America says, we'll do that together then.
Exactly.
If we lose, we'll do it together. Which definitely comes back again in Endgame. In a really cool and touching moment. But I really love their dynamic, that scene of them on the farm where they're chopping up wood and you have like their argument that they're getting into, and eventually Captain America gets so mad and he just rips the logs with his bare hands.
Don't touch my pot.
Right. That's a really cool moment. So I like their dynamic in this movie.
Dynamics, I would say, that's probably one of my favorite ones. I really did like, and like you already commented on this, the Hulk and Natasha. Not as the Hulk, but as Bruce Banner.
Yeah.
And how Bruce Banner and Natasha interacted beyond him just being this big green machine, essentially. And how she's gone from, I'm a broken person, to I'm bettering myself. And Banner going from a good person to now a broken person, essentially, by the end of this movie. And how they kind of are just going like this, and they meet for that one moment, and then they keep going.
Yeah.
And that's what essentially happens, because like you said, the love story's never really talked about after this movie, which is so sad, because Joss Whedon set this up for them to almost be like a future married couple, and then we just never hear about it again.
Yeah.
Mostly he's off-world.
Yeah, he's off-world. Of course, that image that he sees of her, that message that plays at the end of this movie, plays in Thor Ragnarok, and so changes it back into Bruce Banner. And then, by the time he gets back on Earth, they see each other. There's kind of a little awkward pause moment where it's like, oh, hey, Bruce, kind of thing. And then, of course, at the end or the middle of Endgame, spoilers for that movie if you have not seen it, when Natasha dies, you have, Hulk, Professor Hulk at that point, reacting very strongly to that. So there's definitely, there's pieces that are alluding to it, but this movie's pretty overt that they're romantically interested in one another. And
that's...
I think it plays well, but I am disappointed. There were a lot of people that don't like that. They were like, those characters shouldn't end up together. I don't care. I think it works in this movie, and I wish they had built on it.
And you're right. There's a lot of people who don't like it. And I was at first one of the ones that didn't. But watching this again, and watching the character development, where she's stated several times she's broken. I have read in my ledger.
Yeah.
And so she started off as a broken character, and now she's building herself up. And then we had Bruce Banner from watching essentially the first Hulk movie with
Ed Norton.
And you saw he was a good person, and he felt he was a good person, and he tried to stay on that righteous path. But now he's kind of come down after destroying the city. No matter what is it, after the first fight, originally when we first see him, and Thor's like, yes, they're screaming, many men are screaming in Valhalla about your death. Oh, I mean, they're sprained ankles and hurt hamstrings or whatever he says. So you see where Banner now has this struggle, and he's kind of coming down while she's going up, and you get that sweet spot. And I think this movie hit that sweet spot of where, hey, we're both on the same point now, but then later they're going to be at two other ends of it. So you really can't go anywhere.
Yeah, and talking about Bruce Banner, talking about the Hulk, there's a couple action scenes that stand out to me, but the top one is Hulk versus Hulk.
Oh gosh, yes.
Like that whole scene, and it goes on for a few minutes. Like it's a long scene, and it's really inventive. It's really cool. I love the moments where the very opening of the fight where you've got Tony going, Bruce, this isn't you, and
oh god, don't mention puny Bruce,
puny Banner, and there's those moments where like he punches him and Hulk like spits out a tooth. He's, I'm sorry.
I will say, out of all the movies we've seen so far, his one-liners, his little like whips are on point.
They're really good in this movie. When Captain America throws his mighty shield.
So glad you're going there too.
So, anyways, that's a really cool and inventive fight scene, and really,
it really was.
There's a lot of cool action in this movie. Again, I think this is it's funny. Famously, Joss Whedon said this movie broke him. He
Yes.
had a broken ankle at the end of production, and was just working so many hours and putting so much time, blood, sweat, tears into this movie. This is the last movie, at least to this point, that he's done in the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not he'll come back, we don't really know. There's been some negative things that have come out about him in particular over the past couple of years. And we're not going to talk about that or discuss that on this video, but we'll see if he makes a return. He's been kind of floating around DC and Wonder Woman projects for a while, but then obviously Patty Jenkins has taken that and run. So he was rumored for a Batgirl movie for a while. We'll see if that ever comes to fruition, but I mean, if we only got 2 superhero movies from him and we never got another one,
I'd be happy with that.
Avengers Age of Ultron, he knocked it out of the park twice.
Yeah, he did a great job. I think don't get me wrong, I love the Russo brothers. I think they've done a great job now where the franchise is gone.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, you have to give your boy Joss Whedon some applause because he built it up for you guys.
100%. I mean, he, obviously it all starts with Tony Stark, Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. and Jon Favreau in the first Iron Man. But definitely the Avengers, was the movie that we would not be here if that movie hadn't come out.
Exactly.
So the last thing that I really wanted to talk about, and we touched on it earlier, was James Spader's voice performance.
Oh gosh,
just the delivery. That character is so menacing, and I remember when the trailers were coming out, everyone was talking about how menacing this villain was, and again, Marvel's kind of had that problem, especially to this point, where they hadn't really had a lot of super memorable villains. Like, people loved Loki, but outside of that, people were kind of like, their villains are kind of weak, and that's kind of by choice. Their movies focused on their heroes.
Yeah.
But I remember this trailer came out and everyone was like, oh my god, Ultron, he's such a great villain in the comics. James Spader is voicing him so menacingly. And I remember after the movie came out, there were a lot of people that were disappointed with how little Ultron we got. But everyone loved the performance that we got. We just wanted more, right?
Every scene, I mean, and that's what's sad. And I said this earlier, every scene that everybody's in, the person who's supposed to be the star really does shine. Whether it's Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans in it, if it's Robert scene, it's Robert scene. If it's Chris, it's Chris. But everything James Spader was in, I mean, it's just CGI, but every scene he was in, it is my scene. Yeah. And I shine in my scene.
Well, and it even, his introduction that he shows up, obviously you've got, where he's the
little orb.
Where they're the orbs and he's got the Jarvis, but the moment where he comes out and confronts the Avengers is right after they're having that, hammer lifting contest, and, Thor says, you're all not worthy. Yeah. And then that's when Ultron pops in and he's like, worthy? How could you be? And just that very opening, it's just dripping with disdain, and it's just, it's so good. I love his performance.
And I love it because the CGI for that robot's all torn up. It's disfigured even.
Yeah, it looks super creepy.
Yes, and that voice. Mm-hmm. It's just wait, what?
Yeah, and it definitely, even later on when we see him in the church and he's got the hood on him and he turns around, that's a cool visual.
That's because I'm no man.
When he, he's got Black Widow in custody and he does that, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and he
rips himself
through with a new version of his body.
Yes.
Again, it's cool. There's definitely, I think maybe the coolest visual moment is in the fight at the end when Vision, Thor, and Iron Man are all shooting their weapon at him, and there's that moment where his face starts to melt away, and it looks exactly like it looks in the comics. That Ultron face looks, and it's only for a brief second, and then it kind of goes away as it's done melting or whatever. But that moment is such a cool visual moment, and I remember being like, "Oh, that's the Ultron look."
It's oh, you hit it!
Yeah, I wish they had kind of had that look for more of the movie because it's a really cool look. But I understand why they did what they did. That's this movie. Yeah. We both really like it, obviously. We already kind of talked about how it ties into the Infinity Saga, but that's really kind of how we wrap up these videos. So, when it comes to the overall arc, I think, again, we already talked, this movie really sets the stage for everything that comes after it.
Yeah.
I think it ties up, a lot of Phase 2.
Yes, it really does.
And then this sets the stage for pretty much everything that happens with the Avengers, at least in Phase 3. There's, non-Avengers movies like the Ant-Man movies or, Guardians of the Galaxy, some of those other things that maybe don't interact with the Avengers. But this movie, anything that has to do with these characters, totally sets up that stuff.
And it really does, like you said. I think essentially we needed Thor's scene to kind of get another recap of where the stones came from, how they got there, because we already got a little history lesson from the Collector in Guardians of the Galaxy. So now Thor is finding out, because we needed him to know, so that way they actually know we can tie everything together.
Yeah,
too.
and it's really, I remember there were reports that came out kind of after the movie that Kevin Feige was really insistent that those Thor scenes where he's in the pool needed to be in the movie because he wanted to make sure fans understood what was going on, where the stones were going. And Joss Whedon was like, well, I don't really like those scenes. They don't really fit in my movie.
Yeah.
And Kevin Feige was like, well, you're going to put him in. And Joss Whedon was like, well, then I get more time on the farm with Hawkeye.
Yeah.
And so
I get a little bit of farm.
I don't know exactly. I obviously wasn't in the rooms. That's just speculation and everything. But I think those Hawkeye scenes and that stuff at the farm really feels very Joss Whedon-y.
Oh,
so
it
that
really did.
story feels true. But whether or not it is, I don't really know. But yeah, definitely when it comes to the Infinity Saga, this movie fits into the arc. When it comes to the actual stones, the only one we see in this movie is the Mind Stone. It's fine. So anyways, we both really like this movie. What is your score out of 10?
Out of 10. So again, I enjoyed everything about it. I enjoyed the graphics, the CGI, the story, the deaths essentially we've had in this one.
Why are you giving it a 3 then?
I'm sorry. I was lying to you this whole time. It's garbage. You sucked. I hate you, Joss Whedon. No, I love you. Honestly, my number would be a nice solid 8. And the only reason, and we kind of just joked about it, there is those plot points where, like you said, you have plot powers. Like you said, actually earlier, the whole, why didn't he take over Veronica? Why didn't he know where they were?
Right.
Why, and again, like I just said, why is it the scepter messed with your heart, not your mind? Like you said, well, Tony wouldn't want on Tony. And that's true. And it is very, very true.
Right.
And that's where I have to bring it back because those kind of moments take you away from the movie. And then, like I said, for me as a visual person, there are some issues with the CGI in certain parts where I'm like, maybe it was just the lighting, you didn't do it right, which is not his fault, it's their graphics people. And I love the scenes with Claw, I thought they were great, and I really wish there was maybe a little bit more to it, but we do get it later on.
Well, and I'm gonna say it right now, that character, he shows up in one more movie.
Yes.
And again, I want more.
Exactly.
In both movies that Andy Serkis shows up as Ulysses Claw, I want more with that character. He's such a fun character. He's such a delightful villain, which we don't really get in these movies.
No.
Even, Ultron, again, is very serious and, villainous. Really, outside of Loki, we don't get those, characters that are having fun while being villainous. And, that scene with Claw where he's talking about what he's afraid of, and he's like those cuttlefish, they, it's
oh my god, the fact that
so cool.
He offers him candy.
Yeah, it's
candy.
It's such a power move, and I really like that character. So yeah, I agree that
his whole thing, Claw is supposed to be this menacing villain too. And I did like how they tied in the arm because he does Ultron cuts his arm right off.
Yes, he
clean
does.
Off. It's gone. And he's I'm sorry.
Don't compare me to Tony.
Yes. Reminds me of someone else from Iron Man 1, Ironmonger.
Tony Stark built us in a cave.
Exactly.
Scraps.
They get Tony Stark. So anyway, but that's why I can't give it anything higher than an 8. You ruined a chance for a very great villain, and then like you said, he's only in one other movie, and he's 5 minutes maybe on the screen, and to me that whole character was underutilized, and maybe you're right, maybe because Joss Whedon wanted to do more and he couldn't because of time restraints, and I have to put these scenes in now. So I would love to have seen where that character could have gone.
Yeah, I think for me, rewatching this movie, there's parts that I really, really enjoy. There's parts that I'm like, man, this really is so much fun that I'm really loving. But I found myself getting a little bit more distracted this time around. I've seen this movie, 5-6 times. And there were a few moments where I just kind of wasn't as engrossed in it.
Yeah.
So I think this one has fallen a little bit off for me. I still like it a lot, and there's still a lot of good things, but there's just a few moments where, I'm not necessarily as engrossed. That final battle sequence where they're fighting all the robots, the Ultron bots in Sokovia. For me, I'm kind of bored actually by that point. I've the other action beats, like the Hulkbuster or the fight against Ultron on the truck and stuff. I liked those ones more, and this one was just kind of samey. There was a lot of the same things going on. So even though it's cool, I just found myself not. Just kind of oh, let me check my phone real quick.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
That
And
makes
so,
sense.
for that reason, I liked it a little bit less than I used to. I still really enjoy this movie. I still think it's got really good humor. It's got really good action. Overall, I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. Again, I still really like it.
Yeah.
It's definitely. There's been 4 Avengers movies. It's technically my least favorite, but that doesn't mean I don't like it. It's still a very good movie. Anyway, so any other thoughts, Aaron?
Come back. What else? We do another movie, please. I would love it. No, serious though. I really want a movie where we don't kill our villains off, especially one that the fans love. Like you said, the trailers. They should have read that oh crud, the fans love this guy. We got to do some end credit where it's oh look, a spark left of Ultron somewhere. Yeah. Or show that, like you said, maybe you could comment the whole, oh, he was never in the satellite, all of a sudden the satellite turns red. Or something, just some little throw that he's still there. No matter what you do, you never kill Ultron. Because they don't. In the comic books, even when Hank Pym literally absorbs Ultron and they become one person and he leaves in space now, I think, he runs around there, Ultron's never dead.
So, yeah, we'll see what happens. If you're looking for villains to not be killed, check out the Spider-Man series.
Exactly. They never die in that one, apparently. They come out in other movies.
So, anyways, we've got our next movie that's coming up is Ant-Man. So, returning to the land of Paul Rudd and tiny little creatures. So, we'll have some fun with that one. But, I'm Robert, this is Aaron. So for Get Your Geek On, guys, like, comment, subscribe. We want to know your thoughts on this movie. Do you love this movie? Have you rewatched it recently? What are your thoughts on it? Are you sad about Joss Whedon not returning for any more movies? Do you think Natasha and Bruce should get together, or do you think that they need to go their separate ways? Let us know your thoughts. But again, we want to know what keeps you geeky, what makes you geek. So drop it in the comments. We'll talk to you soon, and have a good one.